call. Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. It's a very great pleasure to speak this evening in support of the Veterans Support Bill. And it seems in some ways appropriate that we are debating the third reading of this legislation during this period as we move into the beginnings of commemorations of the centenary of the beginning of the First World War, which we will acknowledge on Monday next week, the 4th of August, which is the 100 years after New Zealand entered that conflict. It's also very good news, I think, that we are able to debate this third reading of the legislation now in the final throes of this 50th Parliament. It is a shame, sir, that we are doing it in the last gasps of this Parliament, but it is pleasing that it will finally, after all these years, be completed, and in a few days' time will go to the Governor-General for royal assent and will become law, because veterans all around the country have been waiting for this day and indeed the day when this legislation is fully implemented for a very, very long time. It's a conversation that started many, many years ago and led to the decision in 2006 by the then Veterans Affairs Minister Rick Barker to empower the Law Commission to embark on a period of consultation to discuss the issues that veterans face, to discuss the ways in which the 1954 legislation had become outmoded, outdated, and no longer fit for purpose. And that was a conversation that was always going to take some time. We all knew that, we all appreciated that. And the Law Commission, under the leadership of Sir Geoffrey Palmer, carried that consultation out well, in a very robust fashion, in a very thorough fashion, so that all the veterans, all the organisations, the not least of which being the RSA and other veterans organisations, were able to participate in that consultation and help the Law Commission to put together an extensive and thorough report that contained within it superb recommendations that were the genesis for this legislation to ensure that in the 21st century we are appropriately providing for all our veterans, be it our veterans who served in World War II, in Korea, in Vietnam, in Malaya, in Afghanistan, in Timor, in the Solomons and in other places around the world. Their needs are not all uniform, and there is a very distinct point in time at which the needs of veterans changes, and that is 1974 with the introduction of ACC. And what this legislation contains at its heart is two separate schemes, one which applies to veterans who served before ACC came into force, and another for veterans who served after ACC came into force. And that's appropriate to ensure that those veterans from those conflicts prior to 1974 have adequate provision and are appropriately acknowledged by the state for the contribution they have made on our behalf and the sacrifice that they have made on their behalf. And I was pleased with the Green Party's contribution tonight because, like the Green Party, we abhor war, we abhor conflict, and we believe that as a nation we should be seeking every possible opportunity to avoid violent conflict with other nations and with other groups around the world. Increasingly, in this century, we do not find ourselves in conflict with other nation states, but with other non-state organisations. But we should always seek opportunities to avoid that. Nevertheless, sometimes we as politicians, we as governments, ask our people to go and put themselves in harm's way. And to me, a veteran is a veteran is a veteran. It doesn't matter what history might say about the conflicts that have taken place around the world. It doesn't matter what history might say about New Zealand's participation in those conflicts or the decision that governments made, right or wrong, for us to be part of them. Those veterans served because their government asked them to, and because they believed it was the right thing to do to secure our nation and to maintain peace and prosperity around the world. And we should acknowledge the incredible sacrifice that was made by veterans who may have been injured or disabled, or simply actually all veterans who are necessarily impacted by what they see, what they experience when they go and represent us overseas. So it was absolutely the right thing to do to get on and progress this legislation. We do have some points of difference with the government. Our first grumble, I suppose, is that it has taken a very, very long time to get to this point. The Law Commission did return its report early in the first term of this government, and it is here we are at the very, very last gasps of the second term of this government that we are finally passing the legislation. I think that's a shame that it has taken so long, but let's not dwell on that too much. Let's celebrate the fact that we've made it this far and that we're very close to implementing this legislation at last. There is an obvious point of difference, and it's been a point of debate throughout the committee stage and throughout the third reading of this legislation, and that's around the lump sum payments and the accessibility of the veterans' pension. Now, we're very pleased that the government has moved from its original position around the criteria for the veterans' pension. It made really no sense at all that there was a requirement that a veteran demonstrate that they were 52% disabled in order to qualify for the veterans' pension, and that it is now universal will be very pleasing. But that's more symbolic than anything else. Where the government hasn't been prepared to move, sadly, has been around the issue of lump sum payments. And this is not an extraordinary amount of money. In terms of the decisions that governments make, something between $7 and $11 million per annum is not an extraordinary amount of money, and it's an amount of money that will decrease over time. And that's unusual for governments. Usually when you put some new spending into the budget line, you have to anticipate that there will be an increase in the actual spend over time. That's not the case here. Yet sadly, the government has decided not to recognise the contribution and sacrifice of veterans and their families by agreeing to the lump sum payment upon the death of a veteran. And I appreciate what the government is saying, that that money will not go to the veteran. But the truth is, of course, that the families of veterans made an extraordinary sacrifice as well. And in the case where a veteran is significantly injured and disabled as a result of their service, then often the family has an ongoing responsibility to support that person through their life. And I think it is absolutely justified that we as a nation recognise that sacrifice and that support as well. So in the legislation there is also provision for a code of conduct, a code of veterans and claimants' rights in their dealings with Veterans Affairs New Zealand. And that certainly is something which came out of the consultation with veterans and their representative organisations, that there need to be some fundamental rights that veterans have when dealing with Veterans Affairs, to ensure that they get a fair deal, to ensure that they get fair service every time. Overwhelmingly, Veterans Affairs delivers a very, very good service for our veterans. And as a nation, I think we compare extremely well with some of the other Western nations around the world who send their people into harm's way and then don't deliver when their veterans come home. And this Code of Rights underpins that and ensures that all veterans get a fair deal. Sir, we do support this bill.
I call Larissa Wall.
Kia ora,